Go on, Madhuji.
Hare Krishna, this is Tamila, my Dandavat pranams. And today we were reading about Hanuman and how he serves to Krishna. And there was the sentence like, executing that order gives me the highest happiness. So when Hanuman serves the Lord, it gives him the highest happiness. And when I serve to Krishna, I don't feel any highest happiness. Sometimes I feel, sometimes not. So what does it mean if one serves to Krishna and doesn't feel happiness? Is it wrong service or something not correct?
No, it's not that service is wrong or something is wrong. The understanding that Rupa Goswami gives in this regard is that conditioned soul is in the state of disease condition, like a person with jaundice. So, person with jaundice doesn't really like to drink sugarcane juice. So, similarly, in a disease state, the conditioned soul doesn't have any much relish or taste for devotional service. So, but as we continue performing devotional service, the taste for devotional service actually revives. So sometime feeling happy, sometime not feeling happy is nothing but the, the because of the three modes of material nature. Sometime in the mode of goodness, the person is more like in the natural state, but in the mode of passion and ignorance, the devotional service doesn't really appeal. So it's like a disease state. So whenever a living entity becomes situated in the mode of goodness, is like close to being the healthy condition. Not really exactly healthy, but very close to being healthy condition. So because the modes of material nature keep shifting in this world, therefore the living entity has this sometime feeling relish for devotion, sometimes doesn't feel relish for devotion service. So the whole purpose of this human existence is, as Krishna explains in the 14th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Mam choya vicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatyetan brahma bhuyaya. The person who constantly engages in devotional service of Krishna rises gradually above the three modes of material nature. Then this flickering, sometimes feeling good, sometimes not feeling good, goes away, and the person actually becomes situated in devotional service and able to relish Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate. The person actually becomes situated in Brahman platform or transcendental platform. So there's nothing wrong. All we need to do is just continue devotional service.
So transcendental platform means what?
Transcendental platform means when there is no more influence of the three modes of material nature. So whether today I'm feeling too much body pain, which is kind of tamoguna. So I think, okay, I will sleep today more. Okay, because my body is not cooperating, I'll get up, I'll sleep a little more. So this is affliction of the tamoguna. But sometimes I feel very enthusiastic, I get up early in the morning. That is mode of goodness. So that affliction will go away. That is called the transcendental platform. When a person without any disturbance continues his devotional service. So whatever form of devotional service we are doing on daily basis, person consistently continues. That means the person is rising slowly and gradually above the three modes without being afflicted by three modes. That is called transcendental platform.
Okay, so if person has depression, the disease depression, does it relate to tamaguna or?
Well, diseases are nothing but result of karmic reaction, but that also slowly and gradually subsides when the person continues to perform devotional service. Because any form of suffering in this world is nothing but a reaction of karma, and a devotee happily tolerates tolerates all the suffering that comes upon him, knowing that the path of devotional service is actually to uproot all the disease condition of material existence. So only panacea, which is solution to all the problems of material existence, is devotional service, continuing devotional service. Everything else is only a temporary remedy or medicine. The ultimate remedy is actually devotional service.
But we can see like older devotee Maharajas, they have some of them have disease and suffering. So how would they feel their disease, because they're on transcendental level, right?
So how do you see that they behave even in disease condition?
They behave, they serve. Yeah.
They just continue serving Vaishnavas. They continue serving the mission of their spiritual master, and that is exactly what is called transcendental platform. Transcendental platform means none of the conditions of material existence really hamper my devotional service.
They don't really suffer when something can pain or...
No, suffering is there. Not that when Prabhupada was having heart attack on the Jaladuta, not that he was not suffering. It was just a show off or just a drama. No, Prabhupada was actually suffering. The bodily suffering is the part of this material existence. Anyone who comes to this, anyone who is living in the material world, even the Nityasiddha associates of the Lord, when they come, if they have a body, a material body, of course their body is always transcendental in one way, but even the body made up of Panchabhutas always going to give trouble. But because the pure devotee of the Lord, like Srila Prabhupada or the Nityasiddha associate of the Lord, even when the body is influenced by the three modes, they just continue their devotional service. The joy that they experience by devotional service has become like a constant experience, a samadhi for them. So the pains and distress of this material world doesn't really bother them. Not that they don't
understand this. I can't understand if they have a sickness, they feel pain, but in same time on transcendental level they don't bother. It doesn't bother them. How does it work?
Well, I will, just I was remembering now as you're talking the example of Vashana Swami Maharaj. So he's, one person who I've seen that could tolerate tremendous amount of pain.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he has, lot of bodily, suffering, and that bodily suffering is nothing but because he actually dedicated his youth, without any reservation in the service of Srila Prabhupada. He would actually be in the snow and, doing the what do you call, construction work outside, when everybody else would be, comfortably situated in the temple or in the warm environment. He would be just out in the snow, in the rain, in any season. He would be just simply outside serving. Whatever, if any one of you have been to New Vrindavan, see whatever landscape exists in New Vrindavan, and has been single-handedly done by Vashana Swami. So he has tremendous amount of bodily pain, and whenever we used to, I remember he was trying for some government support for his medical conditions. So when he would go for the interview for the person would interview him that what is the scale of pain that you are experiencing, from 1 to 10, 10 being most acute and 1 being minimum.
Mm-hmm.
And Maharaj would be in such a condition most of the time. Many times he would be in such a condition that he can't even move. He can't even get up from the bed. And yet he would say, my pain is maybe 3 on the scale of 3.
Mm-hmm.
And then he would be rejected. He would not be given the, medical support because your pain level is not too high. But then not that his strain level was not too high, but the only thing is he used to be so much absorbed in, reading the pastimes, you know, of the Lord, that nothing would really actually bother him. So, and this is something we may go on discussing, but one cannot really actually understand it unless one experiences it.
Yeah.
If I have a nice plate in front of me full of different foodstuffs, the gulab jamuns, kheer, and cake, and different varieties of foodstuff. If I continue eating and somebody else is sitting in front of me and asking, how does this gulab jamun taste? I'll say, this is so delicious. But the person will not get the taste just by me telling him it's delicious until he actually tastes it. So what is divine or transcendental platform is something meant for experiencing, is not simply for hearing. And we can experience that platform when we just continue practicing devotional service. So all we need to do is just continue. Whether we are in distress or we are in happy condition, just continue.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam, Jai Shri Prabhupada. Sudevi Sakhi here. So, Prabhuji, I have a couple of questions, but I'll take one question now. Prabhuji, in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 17, talks about charity in the mood of goodness. There I read that in the purport it says, therefore charity is recommended to be given at a place of pilgrimage and at lunar or solar eclipses or at the end of the month, or to a qualified Brahmana or a Vaishnava devotee or in temples. So I wanted to understand this time of a charity. So here regarding the time of charity is mentioned as at lunar or solar eclipses or at the end of the month. So I just wanted to understand if somebody has to donate for Krishna conscious purpose, is this time and everything important, or what is the significance of this eclipses and the end of the month?
If you see, that is saying not and, eclipse and Brahmana, is saying or. These are different conditions. As far as the charity is concerned, it of course has some criteria, as you explained in Bhagavad Gita. Charity is also in the three modes of material nature. The charity which is done blindly without any consideration is in Tamoguna. The charity which is done with consideration, proper considerations of time, place, circumstances, but with some interest to get something in return, that in the mode of passion. And charity which is done for the sake of just doing the charity without any expecting result in return, considering proper time, place, and circumstances, is the charity in the mode of goodness. But the charity that is done for the cause of Krishna, that is transcendental charity. And transcendental charity actually doesn't have any considerations, but just one consideration, that I'm doing it for Krishna. I'm doing it for the Vaishnavas. So that one consideration, using one's intelligence, that one is doing this for Krishna and the Vaishnava's pleasure, is transcendental charity, and it has no other criteria really important. But yes, there is significance of the time, like eclipses, or Akshaya Tritiya. These are the times, or even Sankranti, Makar Sankranti. These are the times when charity done generally becomes unlimited charity, or becomes many fold. But that's again consideration in the mode of passion. The person who is considering, okay, I want to get some result for this charity, then yes, it has a lot of significance. That I want my charity to be manifold. A person who is doing transcendental charity will continue charity without even such times and certain, because he knows the charity which is done for the pleasure of Krishna is only the charity that satisfies the soul. Even if you get innumerable time or manifold time benefit of the charity, that will not satisfy the soul. The soul will be satisfied only when Krishna is pleased. yenatma suprasidati. If Krishna is pleased, then only the soul will be pleased. So charity should be done with a single most intention of pleasing Krishna and the Vaishnavas.
Thank you, Prabhu. I'll ask my rest of the questions later after others are done.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Haribol.
Prabhuji, that about the charity that you have said, see, we have been learning about this charity from our mom and dad. So every Sankranti or auspicious day, they go and donate something, either in temple or to the poor or to the cow. Or some days you go and feed cow. Someday, but we never bother to ask you what is the significance to do a charity on that day. Even if I ask, you may say no. That has been they have been doing it since they have been told to do from their my grandmother. So, Prabhuji, what is the mode of then in that case these kind of charity?
Actually, this is a very good question, Gaurav. Generally, people in family life are too occupied with their family affairs, and therefore it is uh, generally they don't have time to even consider all these things, about spirituality or charity or anything. In household life, the householders are generally too much occupied. So these events are actually a reminder that they have to come out of their selfishness and try to do some, uh, cause or some charity for benefiting themselves in this lifetime and the next as well. Because people who are completely ignorant of spiritual life, they have to have some sukriti to actually be able to live comfortably in this life or even the next life. If they're not going to be liberated, if they're going to continue the cycle of birth and death, they should have some sukriti done. So these events are actually to get them some pious credits. Because if I'm not going to go, to the spiritual world, I'm going to continue in the material world. And if I'm suffering, like, especially just imagine uh, people who have, constant struggle. They work very hard and simply survive from hand to mouth. They don't have any luxuries of life. So, I mean, probably they spend, their life from not even having any home or living on the roadside. So such people, if they don't have, they live such a condition because they don't have any piety. They don't have any karma done, good karma done to have some comfortable life. And that kind of life is actually tremendously inconvenienced. Just imagine a person who doesn't have home. I mean, especially here in US, I see so many homeless people. In the East Coast, the West Coast, everywhere I see homeless people. And at times it is so cold and at times it's so hot. People who are homeless living on the roadside. Just imagine how much inconvenience and intolerance and tolerance they have to have. So these events are actually to get them some piety or credits so that they can actually have some comfort. Even while living in the material world, they should have some comfort. But again, as we said, these charities in the mode of goodness, passion, and ignorance will keep a living entity bound. Devotee should be doing the charity even on those special events and without even those special events. Should continue doing charity, but with the single most consciousness that I want to please Krishna. Krishnam Samarpayami. This charity I'm offering it to Krishna, and whatever benefit may come, I want to offer it to Krishna. I don't want anything for myself. And that is the charity which actually satisfies most. The soul is fully nourished by that kind of charity. And especially since we're talking about charity, Bhaktivedanta Thakur, he insisted that many times devotees, they have this consciousness, we are chanting Hare Krishna, that's the best form of charity I'm doing for everyone. But devotees should have a habit of giving charity based on their abilities, whatever resources they have, sharing some resources out of that in the service of Krishna and also in the service of humanity. Yeah. Because Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur said, if a devotee does not have the habit of giving, tomorrow even if Krishna comes in front of him in his original form, asking for something, the devotee will refuse to give. Because charity makes the person soft-hearted, makes the heart very soft and a fit place for a residence of the Supreme Lord.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Really.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Rambabu, go ahead.
Dhanot Prabhuji. Prabhuji, in today's Bhagavad Gita sloka, right? So Prabhupada was talking about the transcendental pleasure. So he was also talking about the Purusharthas. Dharma, Artha, Kama, Mokshas. And when it comes to Kaivalyam, the impersonalists deny that there is no pleasure prospect in that. And Prabhupada is quoting Patanjali saying that Patanjali supports the Chit Sakti Revacha. There is a quote from Yoga Sutras which says that so there is transcendental pleasure in that once you achieve the liberation. And I want to understand this Anandamaya Abhyasat, right? Is it one of the Vedanta Sutras or it comes on in Bhagavatam?
No,
And
it's,
if it is,
it's one of the sutras, you know.
if it is
The living entity is by nature the pleasure seeking.
okay. So when it is part of the Vedanta Sutras, how come the impersonalists who are fond of Vedanta Sutras can deny that there is transcendental pleasure in the liberated stage?
No, they don't deny that there is a transcendental pleasure. But their pleasure, the concept of pleasure is negation of all the material pain. Just imagine if I don't have death, I don't have any diseases, I don't have any old age, I don't have to go through the pain of birth, I don't have adhyatmic, adi, bhautik and adi devik miseries. Negation of that pain is pleasure for them. So their idea of pleasure is negation of pain, which is a very preliminary understanding of pleasure. Yes, living entity by nature is not supposed to have any miseries. And living entity actually doesn't have any suffering in miseries in one way, because soul by nature is Satchidananda. The pain is only, or the experience of pain or distress is only because of mithya ahankar, because of the false ego, because of identifying oneself with this body. So the soul does experience the pain, though the constitutional nature of the soul is pleasure. There is no experience of distress for the soul. So the impersonalists, they don't deny that there is pleasure, but their understanding of pleasure is just negation of all the pain.
Okay. So basically when Patanjali says that there is transcendental pleasure, so that is the pleasure derived through the transcendental senses.
Yes, that actually refers to that. But again, the yogis, those who actually follow the process of Patanjali's yoga, their pleasure is also limited only up to Chit Shakti. Sat Chit Anand, right? So impersonalists, their knowledge, their pleasure is only in Sat. I don't have to die, I don't have to take birth. That itself is a great happiness for them. But for a yogi who follows the Patanjali's yoga, for him, not only Sat, but Chit, Chiti Shakti, that is what is being referred here in that words. Prabhupada is quoting from Yoga Sutra. So Chiti Shakti means you also have knowledge. You are not only understanding that I'm eternal, but you also are full of knowledge. Just imagine if I have knowledge about, I mean, today morning only I was actually contemplating Krishna. I was actually remembering one stanza that Krishna actually went to a particular place which is west of Sumeru Parvat, and he established the temple of Lord Shiva there. So I was thinking, we are sitting here in Bharatkhanda. We have no access to the entire Bharatvarsha. And Krishna could actually go to the west of Meru Parvat and worship Krishna there, worship Lord Shiva there, and establish the temple of Lord Shiva. So I don't have any access. I don't even know how to go there, how to even reach there. So just imagine if a person had knowledge of how he can go to any part of the universe or even go beyond this universe. The yogis have that siddhi, the yogis have that power, and they have understanding also. So that gives them higher pleasure than impersonalist. But the devotee has actual ananda. The happiness of impersonalist is sat. The happiness of yogi is sat and chit. But the happiness of a devotee is actually what is the constitutional nature of the soul. Satchid Ananda. Experiencing all three. And Ananda means there had to be two. One alone cannot have Ananda. Ananda means two or more. An interaction between those is actually what is considered Ananda. In real sense, that is Ananda.
Yes, Prabhu, understand.
Hearing.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Can I ask Prabhu?
Yes, Mataji, go ahead.
So Prabhuji, in the same Bhagavad Gita verse 6.20 and 23. So I was trying to understand the same Kaivalyam is being understood by different kinds of transcendentalists in a different way. Their perceiving of it is different. So impersonalist, it is said that he feels oneness with the Supreme or the monist. Then as per Patanjali, the jiva becomes aware of his constitutional position. And in the previous paragraph, it is given yogi realizes the super soul through transcendental mind and intelligence without any of the misgivings of identifying the self with the super self. And in the devotees, it is mentioned that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that Cheto Darpana Marjana and Bhava Mahadavagni Nirvapanam. So, Prabhu, I wanted to understand how is the devotee's perception.
That's what I think we discussed just now, that devotees' understanding or experience is the complete feature of Satchid Ananda. The devotee understands that I am not only eternal soul, not subjected to birth and death. By nature, I am eternal. No, I'm just continuing the cycle of birth and death because of my identifying this body. And devotee also understands, has knowledge of the complete knowledge about the relationship between the soul and the material existence, the relationship between the soul and God, and the relationship between God and the material existence. So in that way, he experiences the chit also. And because of relishing the pastimes of the Lord, hearing and chanting Krishna's glories, the devotee actually experiences Ananda as well. And this is experienced again when a devotee actually becomes cleansed of all the anarthas, at least attains the stage of before bhava is ruchi. Till the time living in develops a ruchi or interest in devotional service. No, once a devotee develops interest in devotional service, actually the miseries of material existence do not affect him so much. Continues to be happy. So till the time we're living in the devotee may experience, the distress, occasionally some distress in experience because of the affliction of the three modes.
Prabhuji, a yogi can see a super soul in everybody and every jiva. So the devotee, when he comes to that state, he also can realize that
Yes, a
he can
devotee
see actually.
can also see. Yes, devotee also sees. But Srila Prabhupada explains the devotee doesn't see Paramatma in everyone's heart. The devotee sees his worshipful deity in everyone's heart. So if somebody is worshipping Lord Ramachandra, he sees Lord Ramachandra in everyone's heart. If somebody is devoted to Krishna, he sees Shyam Krishna in everyone's heart. So that's a special prerogative of a devotee. Devotee doesn't see just 400 Vishnu form of Paramatma in everyone's heart.
Thank you, Prabhu. And I have another question. Bhagavatam, first canto, third chapter, sixth verse. I was reading in that it was a mention of Kaumara creation, and it was written like the creation name is as per the certain type of Brahma. So I wanted to understand what it is.
See, if you have that, paragraph, you can read, then we can understand. In isolation, it's difficult to read.
Yes, Prabhu. I'll just open. I'm opening, Prabhu. So I'm reading this paragraph. The translation is, first of all, in the beginning of creation, there were the four unmarried sons of Brahma, the Kumaras, who, being situated in a vow of celibacy, underwent severe austerities for realization of the absolute truth. Then, in the purport, it says, the creation of the material world is affected, maintained, and then again annihilated at certain intervals. So, there are different names of the creations in terms of the particular types of Brahma, the father of the living beings in the creation.
Okay.
Just wanted to understand this, Prabhu.
So,
The line further is, the Kumaras, as above mentioned, appeared in the Kaumara creation of the material world and to teach us in the process of Brahman realization. They underwent a severe type of disciplinary action as bachelors.
so different kinds of creation is, primarily, as we say, Sarga and Visarga. So Sarga is actually the primary creation where all the ingredients of the material creation are created. And Visarga is the secondary creation that Brahma creates. Now, I don't recollect exactly, but Brahma also, when he starts creating, he creates in certain stages. First the sages are created, the 10 sons of Brahma who are actually sages, they are created. And then comes, the Manu and different sons of Brahma. So the first 9 sons of Brahma, they are actually celibates, including Narada. They are actually celibates, they are all brahmacharis. So that is probably referred here as Kumara. But Brahma also creates the Visarga, the secondary creation, in stages. It doesn't happen all of a sudden overnight. That's what you read in the second canto of Bhagavatam, or I think second or third canto of Bhagavatam, that how Brahma creates different living entities. He creates Asuras, he creates Gandharvas, how the different living entities are created. So all those are different stages of creation. And sometime when he creates something that is unpleasant, like sometime he creates some living entities who are abominable, then Brahma actually gives up his body. So those are different stages of creation. I don't recollect the different names. I don't remember reading different names for that creation, but that is the reference given in that particular line.
Prabhuji, it says different types of Brahma. So that's why I was confused, because it says that
Different types of Brahma means different universes. Different types of Brahma means they're different universes. There'll be different Brahmas. You know? So Brahma that we have is Chaturmukhi Brahma. But different
Yeah.
universes have different Brahmas. One universe has only one Brahma. There's no question of many Brahmas in one universe.
Yes, Prabhu, but I need to understand this line, that so there are different names of the creations in terms of the particular types of Brahma, the father of the living beings in the creation. So why was this mentioned here in this? So is Bhagavatam covers different different universes information, or this particular thing, why it is mentioned here?
Okay, actually now it makes much more better sense. So Kaumara creation is referring to the Chatush Kumaras. So when Brahma went to Dwarka to meet Krishna, and when Krishna asked him, asked the Dwarpal that which Brahma he is, and then the Brahma actually got puzzled, but he replied that the Brahma, the son of the father of the four Kumaras, and from the universe where recently there was the incarnation of Vrishni Garbha. So that is the reference Brahma gave. So it looks like in every universe, Brahma may have some specific sons, which would be, which he creates, and his creation is known by that name. So the creation within this universe is known as Kumara creation. That means he had four Kumaras. But similarly, in every universe, the Brahma will have some specific creation by which he will be known by. So Brahma in our universe is known by the four sons, the Chatush Kumaras.
Thank you, Prabhu.
So I think we can stop here. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Dhanapradam. Prabhu, who is this Vrishni Garbha that is mentioned specifically?
Vrishni Garbha, not much is mentioned in Bhagavatam, but it looks like the Lord appeared as the son of Vrishni. His mother was Vrishni, and therefore he was known as Vrishni Garbha. But I don't remember reading the pastimes of Vrishni Garbha or what exactly he did. But this comes in the 10th canto of Bhagavatam, when Krishna is actually telling Mother Devaki that how he appeared.
Yeah, right, Prabhu. Yeah. I was thinking, who is this incarnation?
Yeah, but even I don't remember reading much about or anything else about Vrishni Garbha beside that.
Prabhuji, is it related to Dhruva?
Sorry?
Vrishni Garbha, is it related something to Dhruva?
Maybe, Matki, I don't recollect. Could be.
Because in that scheduled incarnations, in the second canto, there is a mention there. I have to go through.
Yeah, could be. But I do remember reading in 10th canto of Bhagavatam, Krishna actually tells Mother Devaki that I had appeared before also as your son.
I think in Laghu Bhagavatamrita he mentions that Vrishni Garbha is same as the Dhruva Priya who appeared
to Maharaj Dhruva?
Yeah.
Okay. So the pastime of Dhruva took place during Vrishni Garbha. Okay.
Yeah, I also read here on Vani quotes that Vrishni Garbha created the planet known as Dhruva Loka for the habitation of Dhruva.
Oh, wow. That's
so, Vijay Prabhu, I didn't understand actually. What do you say? Found in Laghu Bhagavatamrita? Can you please repeat it?
Laghu Bhagavatamrita, yes. In narrating the avatars appearing during the Swayambhu Manvantara, the name Dhruva Priya is not mentioned. However, after excluding the other names, the remaining name of Vrishni Garbha should be concluded to be the same person. So here he gives the analysis of why Vrishni Garbha is equivalent to Dhruva Priya.
And I think what Mataji also read, that Krishna Garba created the loka for Dhruva. That makes perfect sense. Thank you very much, Mataji and Vijay Prabhu for sharing this.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yeah, Mataji, go ahead.
Prankotka Devidasi. Prabhuji, when you mentioned while talking about giving the charity, you mentioned these lines, Prabhu, like love these words saying giving charity makes person soft-hearted, and keeping in mind we are pleasing Krishna instead of like pleasing that person, we are pleasing Krishna. Wonderfully explained, Prabhu, these lines.
Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you so much, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, I forgot to ask one question actually. On Dwadashi Parana, usually it is mentioned like we should be feeding Brahmanas or something. So we are living in US. How can we satisfy that condition? Is it a necessary condition to for the fulfillment of the Ekadashi Vrata, or is it how we can do it in US?
Mataji, you can invite any Vaishnava living close to your home. Maybe if you can invite Vijay Prabhu, he's a perfect Brahmana in one way. But you can consider in this way that if you have facility to invite the devotees, that's wonderful. If not, then it's a detail which can be followed if you have the ability to follow and facility to follow that. And I think in current situation it is possible. Current situation, I think you can continue. And moreover, when we offer prasadam to our deities, we are actually offering to Guru and Srila Prabhupada, which are actually more than just Brahmanas. They are the Vaishnavas. So you are actually feeding the Vaishnavas before taking prasadam. But it's a good thing if you can invite some devotees, and it could be actually a good practice. But I think in current situation here,
yes, Prabhuji, but in this Kali Yuga, in the early hours, if you call somebody also, they won't be coming, right? If during the Parana time, when before the Parana, we have to actually serve them, then you break the fast, something like that, right?
So just a detail, don't worry about it. You can just try to follow whatever is possible. If you just go for strict guidelines of Haribhakti Vilas, then probably we will not be able to follow a single Ekadashi as well. We cannot follow a single Ekadashi. And Prabhupada said, if you were to follow all the rules and regulations of Brahmanical life, then whole day you will be sitting in the bathroom. So just try to follow whatever is possible. Don't worry about it. Many of the things are the details.
Thank you so much, Prabhu.
Actually, yesterday, Prabhu, Ananda Mataji sent a message and it was very helpful. I had never done it before, especially for Nirjala Ekadashi. So as soon as, I didn't do Nirjala because of my health reasons, but Shivatsa did. So we stood in front of Krishna. We offered some Lakshmi, and we said that it's going to go for a books and offer. I know she said, like, in olden days, they would offer cows and calves and, all those things. So in this Kali Yuga, this is the least we can offer to you, Krishna. So we just offered it and then broke our fast. Ananda Mataji had put that in the Vaishnavi Sangha, and I felt that was so helpful. I had never done that before. So I think that was something I felt was very practical.
Yeah. Thank you, Mataji. Thank you for sharing. So there you go, Sudhi Mataji. You can try to follow that.
Somehow I missed it, Mataji. So I have to search.
Mataji, she said that you can offer any amount of Lakshmi to temple operations. You can send it by PayPal, or even whatever Lakshmi you have. I had Lakshmi in my bag, so I just offered that to Krishna and said that this is going to go to temple. So whenever I go, I put it in the hundi. But it doesn't have to be huge, but it's just that our a little offering to Krishna, that this is something that I can personally do now practically.
Yeah, wonderful, Mataji. That's very
Yes,
nice.
we got a mail also, right, Mataji, in ISV Connect and
Yeah,
Bali.
yeah, Balimardhan Prabhu posted it. Yeah.
Yeah, oh, yeah, for everyone, yes. And so many groups they posted, yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, wonderful.
Prabhuji, we can also incorporate this thing in Vaishnava etiquettes. If
I think it's a good thing. Yeah, we could do that. The practical way of doing charity.
yeah,
Actually, Prabhuji, after when we call to our house any Vaishnavas, like a tambulam, like a dakshina, we'll give something to them, right? It is also kind of charity, right?
Mhm. Actually, the proper tradition in the Vedic culture is whenever a person goes to temple or to meet a saintly person, always takes something with him to give it as a charity. Like you read in Mrigari's pastime, Chaitanya Charitamrita, when Mrigari became Vaishnava. So when people heard that, oh, Hunter has become a Vaishnava, so people were coming and they were bringing so many gifts for him. So it's actually a good thing to incorporate in our etiquette manual also. Maybe Sachin Madhav, you can make a note of it, that whenever devotees go to temple, we go weekly basis. Even if you take little bit something, some flowers from your backyard, or or uh, maybe just a pound of
Fruits.
beans or a pound of rice, something you take on day and every time when you go to temple will actually be so much beneficial. In that way, we develop a habit of giving charity. It may not be has to be a lot. Even if something that you can sustain and do on whenever you go to temple, that could be actually so beneficial. Just imagine every family just bringing 1 pound of beans every week. You probably won't need to buy our beans or the things to sustain the festivals, and that doesn't really pinch also to anyone. Little bit that we can take with us to the temple, or when we come to
Prabhuji, I remember reading in the Lilamrit also, Prabhupada mentioned that when you go to temple, you can carry something, flowers, fruit, or anything, or else you can even give some Lakshmi if you haven't got something like that.
but I think it's a really good practice, that that devotees, if can develop the habit of bringing some gifts for the Lord. Lakshmi, we keep giving from time to time, right? Every time there's a campaign, we do give for Janmashtami, we give for different festival times, we give. So Lakshmi will continue to give, but we should also put a habit of bringing some gift for the Lord, actually foods, flowers, or something like that.
Prabhuji, normally in outside ISKCON also, devotees who go to temple, they at least carry coconut, agarbatti, flowers, something they take and offer. And the pujari will break the coconut, offer the water, and give the half coconut, like that. It used to be traditionally followed. Yeah, but here is in ISKCON we don't accept any coconuts. We can offer fruits or something, definitely.
Flowers is something that is always can be offered.
Prabhuji, I just submit one thing, that is Kamal Lochan Prabhu has given once this in temple, Radha Gidhari temple. He has given this like in lecture that you should have a Vatsalya Bhava with temple, Krishna's temple, so that every time you think that no, maybe my if you take whatever rasa that you follow, maybe he is requiring this and that, this product, or the maybe dal, or maybe rice, or maybe every time you go there, you give it to as a charity or as a relationship. In a relationship, how do you do it with your son if you have a Vatsalya Bhav? So in that way you fulfill the things in a temple, so that way it will help temple.
Not only help temple,
It's
but it
just a
helps us to develop that loving attitude for the Lord. It's actually a
Yeah,
very
yeah,
good thing.
that is also correct. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's more than temple. It's actually helping us. You know? So I think that's a good thing if we incorporate in our manual and also put it a habit to do that. So I think very
Reminds
good.
me of Sudama bringing chipped rice for Krishna.
Yes, that's right.
It was just a handful of it, but still Krishna wanted to have it.
So similarly, it should not be. I mean, when we start doing this, we should make it a point that I do it, whatever is my capacity. There should not be any competitive spirit. Oh, this devotee brought so much, and I'm bringing this much. No, just go in the mood of, just like Sudama. Whatever I have, I'm giving. Actually, I was hearing Radha Govind Maharaj's lecture on this particular episode. He was saying when Sudama brought the chipped rice, which was actually he didn't had also, his wife had to beg from the neighbors. So he had given more than whatever he had to Krishna. Okay. So Krishna was feeling so ashamed. Krishna didn't talk anything about giving to Sudama. So Sudama, when he came, he was having some, his old dhoti and torn, that was also torn from many places. Krishna actually welcomed him. He put him on his own bed, and Lakshmis, all the Lakshmis were actually serving him. All the wives of Krishna, they were serving him. Rukmini, Satyabhama, and all the queens, they were serving him. And he was sitting in that, old and torn dhoti and clothing. Krishna didn't tell him, okay, let me offer you some nice dhoti and all. No, he served him in exactly same way. And even when Sudama was leaving, Krishna didn't speak a word to him that I want to give you something. Krishna didn't talk anything about giving. He served him nicely. All the wives of Krishna, they wanted to bring, different food stuff they cooked for him. They know that Krishna's friend has come. They all cooked actually different varieties of food stuff. And, when he's leaving, Krishna didn't even talk about giving anything. And Maharaj was explaining that Krishna was feeling so ashamed that he has given me more than whatever he had. I cannot do that. I'm not able to reciprocate with him. I cannot, I'm not able to give him more than whatever I have. So Krishna was actually feeling very humbled and ashamed to reciprocate with Sudama. So this is actually nothing but, when I was hearing that, it was such a joyful experience. Simply hearing Maharaj narrating that particular episode. So this can actually develop within our life when we actually put a habit of taking something for Krishna. So actually, let's start a habit. Whenever we go to temple, take something with us. And I think this is a good thing to incorporate in the Vaishnava etiquette manual. Please, Sachin Madhav Prabhu, you can head this.
Yeah, we'll do that, Prabhuji. But exactly, I'll be needing the points to be added. But
Yes.
I'll consult with you.
Discuss that.
In LA temple, they have kept a brochure only, and that what kind of materials they need in case devotees want to donate in kind. So they have kept it specifically what kind of things are allowed or we can accept. So that is one thing. But if nothing is mentioned, we can always bring whatever we feel like. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just a help that we follow in here we are in close contact with the person who cooks the Radha Giridhari temple. He's the in charge of Radha Giridhari. So whenever we go to the supermarket or something, then what we do is we call them that what is the stuff that is not there. So suppose if the dal is less or rice is less or sabji is less or whatever, so we just call them and then they tell us what is not available, and then we go to the supermarket and buy it and then give it there. So that is one way, just to have a contact number of this person who's in charge of cooking.
These are all details which can be worked out on temple level, but the etiquette should be to take something. That's so nice.
I was thinking, sorry, Prabhu, I was just thinking that in this COVID situation, practically giving Lakshmi to temple probably is better. I was thinking, I don't know if I'm right or not, because everybody will be touching these groceries, and it may
Sure,
not
sure.
be.
Sure,
I mean, just during the COVID time, and now ISKCON
I mean,
Silicon
that's
Valley
what I said, money or Lakshmi will continue to give to temple, but whenever we go to temple, now we cannot even go to temple, right?
Yeah,
When we
that's
go
so
to
true.
temple, it's just to develop a relationship with Krishna.
Yeah, that's a very good point, Prabhu. Yeah, when you take something, always you remember that, oh, I need to get something for Krishna. You buy for Krishna. Yeah, thank you, Prabhu. And I just wanted, in that note, I wanted to mention ISKCON Silicon Valley is absolutely needing a lot of donations because we are not going to temple. So please do become monthly donors. Thank you, Prabhu.
And also now we can buy books even online.
Yeah.
That will be also another way of donation, and just maybe present these books to someone.
Yeah, yes, Mataji. Books will actually directly go to BBT, and
Yeah.
we distribute a lot of books. We also have temple operations, which you can actually donate for temple operations monthly. A little bit, whatever devotees can. Yeah, thank you,
Yeah.
Mataji.
Thank you.
Yeah. So thank you so much, everyone. Appreciate such a wonderful discussion in the morning. And today is Pani Hari Chiradahi festival, so maybe you can meditate on the pastime of Raghunathas Goswami receiving the mercy of Lord Nityananda and celebrating Chiradahi. Thank you. Thank you very much. Vansha
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.